So today we're going to be talking about one of the most detrimental effects on your confidence that exists, and it's the concept of maybe. And today we're going to be having a look at how to eliminate the concept of maybe from your life so that you're as confident as you can possibly be. So I want to start with a quote by Cicero. More is lost by indecision than by wrong decision. Indecision is the thief of opportunity. It will steal you blind. It's kind of what we're talking about here today. And it shows you that this wisdom around the concept of maybe goes back many thousands of years. I'm not the first person to think of it by any means. Confidence is by its nature assertive and bold. It lives in one of two places: hell yes and hell no. All in or all out. It lives on the fringe of that spectrum, on the edges. It is definite and certain in its actions. And in between, the shades of grey in between all in and all out, hell yes and hell no, become ever less confident, ever less certain, especially once you get into like the dead middle of being stuck between two options and not being able to choose. That's about as unconfident as you can possibly be. And if you spend a lot of time there in your life, you'll start to become unconfident as a person. So confidence dies in that in-between place, between yes and no, between all in and all out. It dies in the maybe space, in that purgatory between decisions. I want to put it out there that there's really no such thing as actually waiting to make a decision. That in itself is a decision. But it doesn't feel like you've made a decision, and it's the fact that you don't feel like you've made a decision that kills your confidence more than anything else. When you start to realize that not making a decision is a decision, that not going hell yes on something is going hell no on something, it'll actually help you find a sense of peace and certainty in your life, because you'll realize you have chosen, the decision's already made. You're not waiting for anything. You're not stuck in that purgatory, that waiting room, because waiting is really just allowing opportunities to be reduced. Let's say you start with 10 options. The longer you wait, you get down to 9 options because one of them goes away. You get down to 8 and 7 and so on. The longer you wait, you're eventually left with only one option, the only one that's available to you after all the good ones are gone. And quite often we're in a situation where there aren't even really good options. There's bad, and then there's terrible, and then there's horrific. But if you wait long enough, bad will disappear and you're left with just terrible and horrific. And you wait even longer and you're left with just horrific. If you think about the Jewish people in World War II who kept waiting to abandon their house and escape the towns they're in, and their options eventually got limited to being kept in, what did they call those, ghettos, and they didn't fight back then, even though that was a bad option. It was an option, and then that got taken away and they got shipped to the concentration camps, and now they got no options but the horrible option. That's an extreme scenario of what we're talking about, where you didn't want to take the bad option because it was painful or dangerous or risky, and so you're really, by default, choosing even worse options that come with not acting quickly enough. I want to give you some examples of maybe that occur in sort of modern day real life, the things that you'll be familiar with. Fantasizing about asking someone out, or fantasizing about being in relationships without taking any particular action to make that happen. So you're not facing rejections, you're not asking people out, you're not telling someone that you're attracted to them. You're just fantasizing about being with them. That's a case of maybe. You haven't decided to stay single, but you also haven't taken action towards being in a relationship. You're kind of in between, a fantasy relationship in your head that doesn't really exist. Waiting for the right time to confront someone. This one often seems very logical, like now's an inappropriate time to bring that up. But it means that you haven't chosen between not confronting them and just making your peace with the issue, or confronting them and asserting your boundaries or whatever it is that needs to be said. You're in between again. So you see what I mean by maybe? You're in between going for it or not going for it at all, giving up on it. Thinking about starting a business one day or thinking about a career change. It means you're not really into what you're currently doing, but you haven't started the next thing. So again, purgatory. Promising to quit something that's bad for you, like a bad relationship or a shitty job or a crappy place to live, once something happens. Like, once I make enough money, then I'll quit my job, or, once the kids have left home, then I'll divorce my wife. So again, you're not in the thing, you're not making the most of it, but you're not actually getting out either. You're stuck in this imaginary place in the middle. Saying, I want to, but I can't afford it. Or saying, anytime you say that you want something, but you don't actually do anything towards it, that's a maybe. Telling yourself that you need to know more before starting something. Right? Telling yourself that you don't have enough information to get going, to make that first step. Again, it looks like, especially if you're doing research, that actually looks like action. But you haven't actually started the thing. You haven't made your peace with not doing it at all either. So that's purgatory. Waiting for somebody else to lead you. Right? Waiting for somebody else's permission, the commands, instructions before you act. And just kind of sitting there going, come on, when's it going to happen? Not ending something properly, just in case. You know that whole thing? Like maybe you try to stay friends with your ex just in case you might want to get back together with them one day, even though you don't really like them anymore. Or you leave your job because you hate the environment, but you don't tell them that. You leave on these like amicable terms and try to keep it nice just in case you want that job again one day. So you haven't really ended. You haven't closed off the thing. You haven't burned the bridge. So you've sort of got one foot still in there in your imagination. That's a maybe. Anything where you're staying in it and complaining about it, but making no genuine moves to change the situation. That's a maybe. Okay, so you get this theme. It's in something, wanting to move to something else, yet there's no action towards moving to the other thing, or no action towards ending the current thing. That's maybe, and that's where confidence dies. That's where your faith in yourself, your trust in yourself, your love for yourself goes to die. Quite often what you're doing is you're waiting for an ideal option that doesn't exist. You've got option A, your current situation that you don't like. Option B, an alternative situation that's probably better. But neither of them are your dream, option C, which is everything exactly the way you want it. And so you sit around not choosing really between A or B, not leaving or starting, waiting for C to somehow occur to you. That's what most people are doing. And the ideal option is one where there's no emotional discomfort, perhaps. There's no chance of failure, no chance of pain, no humiliation, no uncertainty or confusion, total control of all the results and everything around you and everyone involved. That's often what we are kind of subconsciously dreaming of when we think of that ideal life. And that's often what keeps us waiting, is we don't see that option. And part of us goes, just hang about, maybe it will come. And this is how somebody stays in a shit job for decades, how somebody stays in a bad marriage for years and years, how somebody won't move out of a house that's toxic to live in, how somebody keeps putting off taking care of their body until next Monday. They're waiting for this option that doesn't hurt at all, that isn't at all uncomfortable. And they don't realize that no such option exists, even if it looks like it does on somebody's Instagram page. In real life, it doesn't exist. You're waiting for something that's never going to happen. So maybe is essentially nowhere. You're physically somewhere, but you don't want to be there and you haven't invested in it, you're not accepting of it. So psychologically you're out from that place, you're not there. But you haven't landed anywhere else. You're in between, so you don't exist, you're nowhere. And that's why you die, confidence-wise. You essentially have died. You don't exist. It feels like you're doing something, you're planning, you're complaining, you're weighing up options, maybe even doing research online, but actually you're not doing anything. As James Clear would say, it's motion, but it's not action. You're not really changing. You're not adjusting your behavior in this new, novel way to make a new life. You're just really, from the outside observation, you're staying still. You're not moving at all. This kills your trust in yourself. It causes you to miss out on all the best opportunities. As we've discussed, they start to get eliminated over time. How are you supposed to feel good about yourself when you watch yourself behave in this way? I want to plant a seed in your head. It's better to totally make a mistake and get things wrong and make a big mess that you have to clean up than it is to do nothing at all. And that was going back to that Cicero quote, indecision is far worse than wrong decision. Confidence comes from making wrong decisions and failing. You learn something, you endure something so you get stronger, and so on. There's lots of benefits actually from getting it wrong, but there's no benefits from doing nothing at all while yearning to do something. Nothing but suffering happens in that space. So have a look at some of the causes. First is what I call green light syndrome. A lot of people have this, especially nice guys and people pleasers. It's this yearning for a clear signal from the universe, from other people, that it's okay to move forward. Basically, a clear enough signal that there is going to be no harm or suffering if you take the next step. It's a kind of yearning to follow somebody else's lead and expecting somebody else to lead you in your own life, in your own decision making. Sometimes the green light you need to see is kind of approval from society at large. Like a lot of people go to university because it's green lighted, even though they don't know why they're going, or they don't know anything about what they want to learn with their life. They're just kind of going down the river that somebody else dug out for them. Or it can be waiting for someone else to initiate. When I first developed the idea of green light syndrome, it was about sex. About men not initiating sex because they were scared of crossing a line, scared of being rejected. So they would wait for their partner to initiate. And that's the only way they would feel safe to actually move forward with sexual behaviour. Well, it goes far beyond the bedroom. Somebody not going for the promotion at work until their boss says you should go for that promotion. That kind of behaviour where you're just sitting around going, somebody tell me that it's okay to do that thing I want to do. And if you don't get that okay signal, you don't move. So you want kind of guarantee of success before you've even started. That's green light syndrome. Another one of the causes of being stuck in maybe is attachment to outcomes, wanting to control the results while your smart brain knows that you can't. So your brain keeps kind of going through all these permutations. How can I control the result? What is the guaranteed strategy that will work no matter what? And because it can't come up with one, and the reason it can't come up with one is because you can't predict the future. You can't guarantee results 100%. It'll just keep permutating, if that's a word. It'll just keep coming up with new ideas, new scenarios, based on only the information you have in your head, because you haven't taken any action to create new information and better information. So it's just chewing on the same old rag over and over again. And of course, you're just sitting there thinking that you're planning this out, but what you're really doing is trying to fantasize about a results-controlled outcome, which can't exist. Another one that keeps us stuck in maybe is, how do I put this, hoping to be able to take action without getting your hands dirty. It's essentially looking for a smooth, easy, problem-free way of doing the thing. This isn't so much about being focused on results, but on comfort. For example, let's say you wanted to learn how to dance. You look for some quick, easy way to learn where you won't look silly in front of the class and you won't stand on anyone's toes and nobody will say that you look awkward. You're looking for this way to just sort of instantly learn how to dance. Looking for this way where there's going to be no suffering in the process. Again, your brain is smart. It's learned a lot of things since you were born. It knows that there's always suffering in the process. So no matter how much you try to imagine or research a way where it doesn't hurt, you're never going to find it. And this is how get-rich-quick schemes manage to scam so many people into buying their products, is because everyone's yearning for that easy way of doing what everyone else has done the hard way, without realizing, hey, no such easy way exists. These are scams. If they promise something that's hard, can be done easily, then they're lying to you. Fear of being wrong, of course, is another one that sticks us on why. A lot of us were raised in the classic modern schooling system, if you want to call it that. It's actually quite ancient. And we were shamed and punished for getting the answers wrong, for guessing and making a mistake. We're embarrassed in front of our classmates, humiliated with our parents. And of course, a lot of us had this at home as well. If you do something wrong, you're often seen as a failure in some way and punished for it, rather than seen as an explorer who's learning, which is the more accurate way to see it. All the most successful people in the world have a huge string of failures behind them. And that's the truth about success. But if you're conditioned to be embarrassed by failure, again, you're not going to move forward on a decision. You're not going to move forward on an action until you get some sort of guarantee that failure won't occur. And yet again, your brain knows that there is no such guarantee, so you can't move forward. And lastly, I think an overall underlying concept that keeps us stuck in maybe is just clinging to this ideal fantasy life. It's kind of a vague sense more than a clear picture in most people's minds. So some people actually have a very clear picture. Most it's just a sense that there's a right way that life should be, and you're waiting for it to happen. And as you get older, you get more bitter and resentful because you don't see it happen. You don't see people behaving the way they should. You don't see politicians leading the way they should. You don't see your life going the way it should, and so on. And you keep waiting for that should to happen, that fantasy that you've been clinging to since, I don't know, you're a little kid and you read the, stories about how things end happily ever after and all that bullshit. But you're waiting for it to happen, this ideal life. And every time you see your options, you're like, oh, none of those are ideal. I must have to wait for another option. Rather than going, that's life. You get a range of options. None of them are ideal, but some are much better than others. And they're usually the ones with the most limited window of opportunity. You've got to act quickly to get the best stuff. It's kind of like a sale. Whenever decisions are available to you, the quicker you act, the more options you have. And the slower you act, the better options disappear. It's kind of like if you go to, let's say you go to a singles event to meet people. If you sit in the corner waiting to see who's going to come talk to you, by the end of the night, the only people who come talk to you will be the ones everybody else rejected who nobody likes. Right? But if you're proactive and you're like, fuck, who do I like the most? Right, I'm going for it. You're the most likely person to walk out of that event, with some hot phone numbers or whatever. The person who acts quickly and goes for what they want the most gets the best results in the long term. But the person sitting there clinging to this ideal, going, none of these are comfortable, I'm going to wait for the comfortable one, end up with the shittiest options, always, because that's the only thing that's left after everything else is taken by the more confident people. So let's talk about solutions. How do you get out of this maybe life? And for most of you, if you have a kind of tendency to be stuck in maybe, you procrastinate, you hesitate on strong decisions, you kind of stick with things that aren't good for you just because you're waiting for something better, you probably have a whole life of maybe, right? And this is why your confidence is so low. Every area of your life, health, wealth, relationships, psychology, all of it's just full of maybes, full of waiting, full of wishing for the ideal, full of fantasy. And that's why you have low self-confidence. If there's a lot of assertive action in all those areas of life, your confidence issues will disappear. And I'm going to talk about exactly how to do that. The concept how yes, how no, I first got it from Mark Manson, I think. I've seen other people repeat it. I don't know who came up with the original idea. But it's this idea you go all in and all out. So if you're going to go the job, you do it like it's the last job you're ever going to do. You're going to do it like you're competing against others to do the best possible job. Or you're not going to do it at all. That's hell yes versus hell no. And one of the keys to understand to make this decision is if it's not hell yes, if you can't bring yourself to go all in, then by default it's hell no. You've already made a decision and you have to act accordingly. So for example, if I see someone attractive and I want to ask them out, but I'm like, I just can't do it, then what I'm really saying is I never want to speak to them ever. And I'm going to walk away from them and cut off all possible contact. You want to kill that fantasy. If you're not going to go hell yes, then go hell no. Do whatever it takes to make sure the option's no longer available to you. Say no. Loudly and clearly. Make it known that it's over. The decision's already made. And behave accordingly. This will feel very scary at first, like you're giving up possible opportunities, that like you're not keeping enough things parked safely, waiting for you. But the truth is, those things were never available to you anyway. You're not actually taking a risk here. You're just finally getting confident about your decisions. See, every time you didn't say hell yes to something in the past, you were already saying hell no. You just didn't feel like you were, because you kept in your mind the fantasy of one day. Well, we're going to kill that fantasy. If it's not today, then it's no day. Move on with your life. You got to burn your bridges. It's one of the things a lot of people recommend you don't do, and those kinds of people are scared, cowardly people. Confident people do recommend that you put an end to things that you're done with. So if you said hell no to something, whatever that is in real life, burn your bridge with it. If we go, I'll go through the examples I gave before to give you an overview of what hell yes and hell no would look like in those situations. But before I do, I want to give you a story how hell yes and hell no helped my coaching business particularly. I used to have a lot of maybes, so I would have an initial coaching consulting session with somebody. I always do that with new people, just coach them for free so they can get a taste of it. And at the end of the session, the person would seem really enthusiastic, but they couldn't make the decision on the spot. They'd say, I've got to get back to you for whatever reason. Often they sounded like very legitimate reasons. It's a big financial investment, I've got to check with my wife, or let me think about it a couple of days, or I'm deciding between you and one other coach, just let me meet with them first. And it always just sounded legit, like, oh yeah, fair enough, I'll wait. Not once in my entire 8 years of being a coach has any of those maybes ever become a yes. They all just kind of trailed away. They just died on the vine, as it says. And the pattern was so clear that I couldn't deny it. There's never been a maybe that became a yes. But they weren't no's either. They're just floating in oblivion, purgatory. Maybe one day there'll be a client, I thought to myself. And I would, especially earlier on in my coaching career, I'd get needy and I'd chase them and go, I haven't heard back from you. Do you want to have another session? How'd you feel? And I'd just get wishy-washy answers, or they would reject me by email because they're too scared to do it face-to-face or whatever it was. But these maybes would keep me up at night. I'd tell people I almost have clients, kind of thing. And then one day, after my coach at the time recommended this hell yes, hell no concept to me, I did it with a potential client. They said, maybe I've got to check with my wife. And I said, you know what? That means no. So I'm going to say no to you. I'm not going to let you go on a maybe because I'm a confidence coach. I can't let you leave less confident than you came in. So you just assertively told me no to coaching. If you can't tell me, fuck yeah, I'm in, then you're telling me no. And that's how I'm going to treat it. It was awesome talking to you. Hope you have an awesome life. And I just killed it. Cut him off. Said goodbye. The guy hunted me down 3 days later and said, I haven't been able to sleep since that conversation because I really actually am in. But when you said it was a no, when you took it away from me, I was like, fuck, what am I doing? I'm missing out on this thing that I really need. And he signed up. So he turned it into a hell yes. And I realized, fuck, if I'd left him as a maybe, he would have been maybe forever like all the other ones. Telling himself that one day he's going to get coaching while never actually working on himself as his life slowly deteriorates from his bad patterns and so on. By taking it away from him, I pushed him to go like, you just made a hell no decision. How do you feel about that? Rather than living with a fantasy of a maybe decision. And that made him very clear about what he wanted. And we did some amazing coaching work together after that. Totally turned his life around. So let's have a look at those examples I gave before to talk about what hell yes and hell no would look like in these maybe situations. So let me have a look at my notes. Fantasizing about asking someone out. Very simple one. A hell yes is you go and ask them out. A hell no is you cut off all contact with them. Delete them from your Facebook, block the phone number, or tell them, let's just be friends. We could never be together. Something that really kills any chance of you having a relationship with them. Any chance of even being in contact if possible. Waiting for the right time to confront someone. Either confront them or tell yourself it's over, I've made my peace with it. I cannot hold them to account for that behavior because I chose not to confront them. Essentially, I'm saying, yes, keep behaving that way. I'm condoning that behavior. I've made my decision. So let's say if somebody's, disrespecting you at work, if you don't confront them, what you're saying is, I want you to keep disrespecting me. And you can't be mad at them for doing it because you just let it happen. You just basically invited it to happen by not confronting them. So you're saying, I guess I want to be disrespected from here on out. I cannot punish them for doing it. Thinking about starting a business one day. Hell yes means today you come up with your business name and reach out to your first client. Hell no means you delete all the ideas you ever had about starting a business and put all your energy into your current job. Don't talk about it. Don't complain about it. Don't tell people that one day, no, you've decided you're going to be an employee. So be an employee. Go all in. There's nothing wrong with that. Promising to quit something once something happens. So, I'll end this relationship once the kids have moved out of the house. What you're really saying is, if it's a hell yes, you will be calling a divorce lawyer this afternoon. And if it's a hell no on leaving the relationship, then what you're going to do is set it up so you renew your vows to each other. So go set up an event where you say, yes, for another 20 years I will stay with you. And you go make that commitment to them. All right? Say hell no to breaking up with them by saying hell yes to committing to them. But nothing in between. Not maybe one day I'll break up with you. You're either in or you're out. Waiting for someone else to lead. If you need someone else to lead, like if you're not allowed for some reason to move forward, then quit. If you are allowed to move forward and you're just waiting, then move forward. Never wait for somebody to lead you. Right? If you can't move forward without someone else's permission or cooperation or whatever, quit the project, go do something else. You might come back to it later, but you're done with it for now. It's an overall thing that you can develop is how do I live my life without needing to wait for anybody else? And once you open that frame and start looking at opportunities, you'll see that's quite possible. You can always keep going. You don't need to wait for anybody else. You either make your peace with the current situation or you change it. You don't need anybody else for that. Telling yourself you need to know more before starting something. I think the example I gave was starting a new dance class. Either going hell yes would mean you make a call today saying, please put me on the roster for the next dance class. When is it? Thursday? Sweet. You book the time out in your calendar, you're going there. If you can't bring yourself to do that, then quit the dream of dancing forever. Move on with your life. You just said no to it. You don't need to know more. You know enough. If you know how to get to the class, you know enough. Right? If that's not enough for you, then you don't really want to dance. Not ending something properly, like keeping options open, not burning your bridges. You want to quit your job because you feel that the management doesn't have integrity, rather than saying, well, I just need to take a sabbatical. I might come back one day. I really appreciate it all the time, blah, blah, blah. What you'd either, if you're going to say hell yes, you'd stay in the job and really go hard and be their little bitch, or whatever it is you need to do to stay in that job. Or hell no, you quit and say, you guys lack integrity. I never want to work for this company again. Thank you. Bye. So this is what I mean, hell yes and hell no. Do you hear how confident the hell yes and hell no options sound compared to the maybe? Is there really any mystery as to why this hell yes, hell no, absolutely ruling out maybe, is really a kind of pillar of confidence? Confident people do not do these maybe options. There's nothing to be gained in it. One way to do it is you give yourself a time limit on decision making. Make it 10 minutes. 10 minutes is about enough time for any decision, big or small. Whether it's deciding what to have for dinner or deciding whether or not to propose marriage to somebody and everything in between. You really only need 10 minutes to review the information before you can go hell yes or hell no. There's really no further information you're going to need to make a move. So what happens is you give yourself 10 minutes, you literally set a timer if you have to, and if by the end of 10 minutes you're not hell yes, then you must go hell no. Right? 10 minutes is, if you can't get to hell yes in 10 minutes on making that new action, then you're choosing not to do it at all. Okay? So let's say you bought an engagement ring and you're going to propose and you're like, I don't know whether or not to do it. If by 10 minutes you're still not sure about doing it, you go and give the ring away. You sell it. Okay? You put an end to this fantasy. If you're not sure what to have for dinner and after 10 minutes you still haven't decided, you're not eating dinner. You're going to bed hungry. Trust me, in the long run, this is really going to help you get more decisive. If you see the 9th minute happening, you're like, fuck, I don't want to go to bed hungry. Like, fuck, all right, Chinese food, done. And you'll find that you can actually make the decision when you up the stakes and you don't allow maybe with this kind of indefinite time period for making decisions. If you have to wait on someone else, again, 10 minutes, and then move on with your life. Let's say you're like, I can't decide what to eat until my partner gets home, because she's so fussy with food. Well, you give her 10 minutes to make a decision about what you want to eat, what she wants to eat, and if she can't make a decision in 10 minutes, you're going to decide for her. Guess she's eating chicken tonight. She's a vegan, she might not like that, but hey, I gave her 10 minutes. And you start setting up this frame with people like, either you move or I'm going to move. But there's no me waiting for you to move. And this way you can actually breed confidence. You can make people be more assertive and go for what they want more hard because they know that you're not going to wait around. It puts an urgency to them that will help them be more decisive. And it isn't even really about them, though it will help them. What this is really about is you never feel resentment about waiting for people, which was always your choice. You never have to wait. You can always leave. An old friend of mine from school, he literally wouldn't walk the same pace as other people. He had a fast walk, tall guy with long legs. He'll leave you behind. He literally won't even keep pace with you if you don't want to walk his exact speed. Now, he's quite an extreme example, but I used to like that about him. He'll leave his fucking wife and kid behind if he wants to walk down the beach on a nice Sunday afternoon a little bit faster than they want to walk. Maybe he's not that extreme anymore, but he was a great sort of visual representation of what I'm talking about. Either people keep up with you with what you want to be doing, or you leave them behind. Right? You don't slow down and compromise what you're doing so that other people, can stay in there maybe, right? And I'm not talking about not being cooperative. I'm just talking about not letting somebody else's confidence problems hold you back. Make them get assertive or move on without them. Either way, they're going to get more assertive. Allow your hell no's to hurt. You know the regret you feel when you should have gone hell yes on something? Well, you're going to get that shorter and sharper and maybe with an opportunity to correct it quicker if you go hell no rather than maybe. So let's say you see a beautiful girl walk past and you're like, I'm just not brave enough to talk to her. Fine, I'm never going to talk to her. Bye, look away. If you're like, fuck, I really don't feel good about that. Well, you can still run and catch up to it. You still got a shot. The hell no, the regret from the hell no will be so instant. The guilt will be so instant that the window of opportunity is still actually open. Most people, the maybe drags out long enough for the window to close, which is actually what your brain's trying to do. It's trying to secretly drag out time so that the opportunities go away. But even if the opportunity has gone, let's say you burn your bridge with your old job and you're like, oh my God, I feel like that was the right job for me, I just fucked this up. Well, that's good to know. Next time, maybe, when you're in a job that's good for you, you'll appreciate it more. Right? These are all great lessons to have. Finishing up. Confident people decide on things quickly, but not impulsively. The reason they seem so impulsive and so quick is because they don't spend any time in maybe. And when you ask yourself, am I hell yes or not? Decision making becomes very simple. Can I go all in on this thing? No, then I'm not going to do it at all. And that might change you back to a hell yes. After that you go, fuck it, maybe I should do it. And then you got to go all in. You're not allowed a half-assed attempt. You're not allowed to sort of be 1 foot here and 1 foot there. You're either all in, focused, present, fully engaged, which is a confident state of being, or you're all out, which means you're all into something else, whatever the other option is. Either way, you're always all in, which is a confident way of being. But it'll help you speed up your decision making immensely if a hell yes is always defaulted to hell no if it can't be achieved. Right? You're not allowed halfway, you're not allowed maybe. I think it's one of the most powerful confidence concepts I've ever seen in my life. I recommend you to try it out. You can try it out with little things like what you're going to eat for breakfast, or making that phone call that you feel uncomfortable about, or whatever, and then build up to the bigger ticket items like, having kids or getting a job, or starting your own business, or whatever it is. That sort of seems higher stakes. You can build up to that. But watch your confidence go up the more that you practice going all in or all out. Thank you so much for listening, watching, doing whatever it is that you're doing. Get in touch if you want any further support with this, dan@brojo.org. And I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.